Hi everyone. In today's lecture we will make an overview of Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. Introduction. Fyodor Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment, originally published in 1866, is widely regarded as one of the greatest works of world literature. This psychological and philosophical masterpiece explores the moral, emotional, and social consequences of crime, guilt, and redemption. Set in St. Petersburg, Russia, the novel delves into the mind of its protagonist, Rodion Romanovich Raskolnikov, a young, impoverished ex-student who commits a murder to test his beliefs about morality and power. The novel is a profound exploration of human nature, morality, and the struggle between rationality and conscience. Plot summary. 1. The crime. The novel begins with Raskolnikov, a 23-year-old former law student, living in extreme poverty in a small, squalid room in St. Petersburg. He is deeply troubled and spends much of his time brooding over philosophical questions about morality and human nature. He develops a radical theory: certain extraordinary individuals, like Napoleon, have the right to commit crimes if their actions benefit humanity or prove their superiority. To test his theory, Raskolnikov plans to murder Alyona Ivanovna, a miserly old pawnbroker whom he considers a louse and a parasite on society. He rationalizes the act by convincing himself that her death would free others from her exploitation and that he could use her money for good causes. Raskolnikov carries out the murder but panics and also kills Alyona's innocent half-sister, Lizaveta, who unexpectedly walks in on the crime. He escapes with only a small amount of stolen items, leaving most of the pawnbroker's wealth behind. The double murder leaves him physically and emotionally shattered, and he retreats into paranoia and guilt. 2. The punishment, psychological and legal. The novel's focus shifts from the crime itself to Raskolnikov's mental and emotional torment. He becomes consumed by guilt and paranoia, convinced that others suspect him. His deteriorating mental state is further complicated by his interactions with various characters, including Sofia Semyonovna Marmeladov, Sonia, a young woman forced into prostitution to support her destitute family. Despite her suffering, Sonia remains deeply religious and morally pure. She becomes a moral guide for Raskolnikov and represents redemption through faith and love. Porfiry Petrovich, the shrewd and psychologically astute police investigator assigned to the murder case. Porfiry suspects Raskolnikov early on but uses subtle psychological tactics rather than direct accusations to provoke him into confessing. Dunya, Avdotya Romanovna, Raskolnikov's devoted sister, who is willing to sacrifice her own happiness to support her brother. She is engaged to the manipulative and self-serving Pyotr Petrovich Luzhin, but later rejects him with dignity. Svidrigailov, a morally corrupt and enigmatic figure who has a dark past and an unhealthy obsession with Dunya. He serves as a foil to Raskolnikov, demonstrating the consequences of living without moral boundaries. Raskolnikov alternates between justifying his crime with his philosophical theories and being overcome by guilt and self-loathing. He isolates himself from others and becomes increasingly erratic. 3. The confession and redemption. Raskolnikov's internal struggle between his pride and his guilt reaches a breaking point. Sonia urges him to confess and repent, telling him that redemption is possible through suffering and faith. After much inner turmoil, Raskolnikov finally surrenders to the authorities and confesses to the murders. The novel concludes with Raskolnikov's imprisonment in Siberia. Initially, he remains detached and unrepentant, still clinging to his belief in his philosophical theory. However, Sonia follows him to Siberia, offering unconditional love and support. Over time, Raskolnikov begins to experience spiritual renewal and redemption, symbolizing the novel's broader themes of forgiveness and moral rebirth. Themes. 1. Crime, guilt, and punishment. The novel's title encapsulates its central theme. The crime is not just the act of murder but Raskolnikov's violation of moral and ethical boundaries. The punishment is twofold: the psychological torment Raskolnikov endures before his confession and the legal punishment of imprisonment. Dostoevsky explores how crime affects the human psyche and society at large. 2. The duality of human nature. Raskolnikov embodies the conflict between rationality and morality, pride and humility, good and evil. His internal struggle reflects the broader duality of human nature, as he alternates between viewing himself as a heroic figure and feeling immense guilt for his actions. 3. Redemption through suffering. One of Dostoevsky's key beliefs is that true redemption comes through suffering. Sonia, as a Christ-like figure, exemplifies this idea. By enduring suffering and embracing faith, Raskolnikov ultimately finds the path to spiritual renewal. 4. The corruption of society. The novel critiques the social conditions of 19th-century Russia, particularly the poverty, inequality, and exploitation that drive individuals like Raskolnikov and Sonia to desperate actions. Dostoevsky portrays a society in moral and spiritual decline, emphasizing the need for compassion and reform. 5. The limits of rationalism. Raskolnikov's philosophical justifications for murder highlight the dangers of extreme rationalism and utilitarianism. Dostoevsky argues that morality cannot be reduced to cold logic and that human life has inherent worth beyond practical considerations. Character analysis. Rodion Raskolnikov. A complex anti-hero, Raskolnikov is both deeply flawed and deeply human. His intellectual arrogance and moral confusion drive the central conflict of the novel. He is torn between his belief in his own superiority and his innate sense of compassion and guilt. Sonia Marmeladov. Sonia represents purity, faith, and self-sacrifice. Her unwavering goodness and religious devotion contrast sharply with Raskolnikov's moral ambiguity, making her a beacon of hope and redemption. Porfiry Petrovich. The clever and patient investigator represents the forces of justice. Unlike traditional detectives, Porfiry relies on psychological insight rather than physical evidence to solve the case. Svidrigailov. A morally corrupt character who represents the darker side of human nature. Svidrigailov's hedonism and lack of remorse serve as a cautionary example of a life without moral or spiritual grounding. Dunya. Raskolnikov's sister symbolizes strength, dignity, and loyalty. She is a moral anchor in the novel, refusing to compromise her values even under pressure. Symbolism. St. Petersburg. The city itself mirrors Raskolnikov's mental state, oppressive, chaotic, and decaying. Its poverty-stricken streets reflect the novel's themes of social inequality and moral corruption. The cross. Sonia gives Raskolnikov a cross, symbolizing his potential for redemption through faith and suffering. Dreams. Raskolnikov's recurring dreams reveal his subconscious guilt and moral conflict. For example, his dream of a horse being brutally beaten reflects his deep-seated revulsion for cruelty and injustice. Siberia. Siberia, where Raskolnikov is exiled, symbolizes both punishment and the possibility of spiritual rebirth. Writing style. Dostoevsky's writing is dense, introspective, and psychological. The novel's third-person omniscient narration allows readers to delve into Raskolnikov's thoughts and emotions, creating a sense of intimacy and tension. Dostoevsky masterfully uses symbolism, foreshadowing, and vivid descriptions to enhance the novel's philosophical depth and emotional impact. Legacy. Crime and Punishment is a cornerstone of Russian literature and a profound exploration of morality, justice, and the human condition. Its influence extends far beyond literature, inspiring philosophical discussions, psychological studies, and countless adaptations in film, theater, and art. The novel's enduring relevance lies in its timeless themes and its ability to challenge readers to confront their own beliefs about morality, guilt, and redemption. Dostoevsky's masterpiece remains a profound and unforgettable exploration of the complexities of the human soul.